Welcome to my home. We had a few technical problems at the studio this evening, and we've got Stephen had to work today. Um, my wife has got sinus problems, and so you're stuck with me today. I'll just have to do the best I can. But I must admit, it's good to be here. I much appreciate the opportunity to share what I have to share. Um, I'd like to start off by reminding everyone that the name of our show is What Would Love Do? Um, I don't think we can overemphasize the importance of that question, and even more so the answer to that question. It actually, I think, translates into every aspect of life itself. Um, and let me follow that up by saying I really have been enjoying the shows that we've been having, especially on Sunday evenings, the guests that we've had. Um, I don't, I can't imagine there being anything else just like it in existence. Maybe there has in times past, maybe there is somewhere else at this very moment. I don't know. But it's quite revolutionary in my estimation. And I say that in a good way. But one of the things that has been being dealt with from our uh, atheist friends, I guess it's okay to call them that. I certainly can call them friends, and I know that they refer to themselves as being atheists, so I think that's a fair term to use. Um, but I can really appreciate a lot of what's being stated. I appreciate the attitude of the ones I've been becoming acquainted with. I'm not going to try to name names right now, other than Greg Bray. I've become quite familiar with his name. I'm not the best in the world with names, but anyway, just a lot of statements I've been hearing. The attitude that's been coming from the guests that we've had on the show just overwhelm me at times, and I can't say enough about that. But it's the ironic thing and the funny thing to me is um, the very statements that are made a lot of times concerning proofs. And that's one of the things that I actually do appreciate, the evidence, the proof that they ask for. And the funny thing with me is it kind of makes me think of some statements I've heard Bob Graves say. And it has to do with this inner knowing, this reality that does kind of at times go beyond proof. Uh, I think we have evidence, but maybe not the proof. But for me, one who has, I must admit, as young as I can remember, I believed in God. I can remember nights as a young child praying in my bed. And it wasn't just a token thing. I didn't feel like I was just fulfilling some obligation. I didn't feel like I was praying into the air, just speaking words that weren't being heard. I really sensed that it meant something. I know it meant something to me. And so, but from that time and the better part of my life, I believed in a particular God. He was, even though I had never really thought about it in this way, as I began to have things presented to me, and begin to question things that I had learned and believed most of my life, uh, this God really began to come into question. Not God himself, but my perception of it. Could there really be a God like this? Uh, and as I begin to look at this thing that we call the Bible in a more honest way, I begin to see much contradiction. There was just so many things that didn't add up. On the one hand, you've got someone that seems like there could be no more cruel being that could be imagined. And then on the other hand, you've got statements like God is love. And so if you try to put the two together, you come up with love as being some really Jekyll and Hyde type situation at best. At worst, it's monstrous. And as I was thinking about the things I wanted to say today, I can't help. I mean, I guess it's just part of my makeup, but thinking about different songs that I've heard in the past and relating to them. And I know that a lot of times that's what music is about. That's what songs that people write are about. They're questioning. They're contemplative. There's a lot of thought that goes into songwriting, and at least on occasion, and I would say more than that, some very good words that you find in songs. It's one song in particular that I'm thinking of, though, is somewhat relative, but the song is Love Hurts. And for those of you who are familiar with the song, I'm not going to try to sing it for sure, and I probably won't even try to quote the words. But just that term itself is an interesting statement. And I would have to say that if I could still cling to this God that I used to believe in, I would have to say love hurts. It's very painful. But in a different sense, I can agree with those words. And I may get into that a little later, but that's not really what I wanted to stress this afternoon. The thing that I wanted to start out with is this thing of proof. And for me, as an individual, the proof, the real proof to me that there is a God is the very thing that this show is about, love. When I say what would love do, to me it's equivalent to saying what would God do? Because I have come to know him as love. And I will admit at this point that this is not a simple subject. When I say the word love and I qualify it and I try to relate that to who God is and what he's like, we're talking about something very complex. So my definition of that particular term has changed. But one thing I can say about it, it's always good. The end result of loving, true love, is always good. And so what we have that we can count on when it comes to love is very good. And the interesting thing is, this is what I'm seeing when I see these conversations that have been ongoing. And I know that this evening that we're going to be experiencing some more of this. And so far, I keep looking for this the stereotype atheist. And maybe I'll get to see him this evening. But I heard, I was catching some of the reflections this morning, listened to the ladies talk, and they were having a good conversation. And I understand if no one else will, they will be monitoring the respect level of the meeting this evening. So that's good. Everybody's got to remain respectful. But the nice thing is, so far on the shows, we haven't had to have that. There's been plenty of respect, and it's so wonderful to see. But I wanted to make reference to something that Jesus stated. And we all know that Jesus said a lot of things. We have a lot of things recorded. We can't really rely a lot on the accuracy of the translation. We know he didn't state these things in our language, and they've been translated, retranslated, they've been manipulated, all sorts of things have been done, as we have discovered. And so one of our goals, we know, is trying to determine what he really said, and not only what he said, but exactly what he meant, why he said it, who he said it to, and so forth. But there's this one statement that just won't go away, thank God. And he's, as far as what we have, the English rendering of it, that is, uh, he said, "This is my commandment." And in all honesty, I wish I had before me the best translation of that particular statement. But when I think of it in terms of commandments, the crowd he was speaking to that particular day was a Jewish crowd, and they were all about commandments. And we have a church today that is also all about commandments. They get real upset if they can't put at least 10 of them on walls in certain public buildings. And that bothers me because I don't know why we would need 10 of them when Jesus only had one that I know about. And it was simply this: love one another. Now, he took it just a little further than that. He said, love one another as I have loved you. Now, that's huge, because that means in order to keep that commandment, we would have to know exactly what he means by love. We need to know exactly what that is in order to actually do that. And we need to take a real close look at his life to see how he lived, to see how he demonstrated this command that he gave. And so, but let me state this. This is not, I mean, if this were as simple as it sounds, I mean, to me, it sounds like, okay, well, let's just all do that and everything will be fine. But if that were the case, why wouldn't we have been doing this for years? Why would there be so much separation, not only between Christians and every other religion or non-religion, non-believers in God, but why would we have so many divisions within the very thing that claims to follow Christ? I don't even know the number. It's in the thousands of divisions. And if we're all loving one another as he loved us, there's just something wrong with that picture. And so my point is, this is not something that we can just say, oh yeah, I do that. Or just say, I'm going to do that, and then we just do it. It would be nice if it were that simple. But the problem is, every one of us comes with baggage, and our baggage is here. It's what we believe, it's what we have been taught. It's, as I've heard it stated like this, the gene pool, the meme pool. There's so many contributors, so many hindrances. And first and foremost, as I've already stated, we've got to know what this really means. What did Jesus mean by love? Because as many people as you can probably find that many definitions of this particular term. And to follow up what I've already stated, I would like to say that this is the challenge that we really have. I mean, if we claim, okay, I'm going to follow Christ, or if we just want to say, I'm going to be the best person I'm going to be, maybe I don't believe in Christ, then how would either be accomplished? How could we be the best person we could be? How could we truly be described as a follower of Christ? And my answer at this point would be love like he loved. If we can get a true glimpse of that, if we can come to terms with that and live like that, then and that began to spread. And we had, if that was the disease of the world, the world could come together. We could see the best that life has to offer. We could see the best of humanity. And when I think of this in association with the shows that we've been seeing on Sunday nights, Um, wow, how powerful is it? Because if we can see, if we can cross possibly the largest gap, and interestingly enough, as we bridge this gap, as Dr. Jones was referring to this morning, you have those who can't go there, not willing to go there, I should say. People who claim to be theists, claim to be followers of Christ, that say, I'll have nothing to do with an atheist. Uh, my question would be, why? You know, when we consider the command of Jesus, there's one thing that we need to keep in mind. He did get more specific. He didn't say who who not to love. As a matter of fact, when you throw the enemies into the mix, it really doesn't leave anybody out, because we all love our friends. At least we should. Sometimes maybe we don't show it in the way that we should. And maybe there's that baggage, maybe there's those hindrances that even come in those relationships. It's a good place to start. If we can truly love our friends, maybe it'll carry on over to the love for our enemies. But, it's got to start somewhere. I keep saying that. It's got to start somewhere. And I want to spend just a little bit of time looking at what Paul had to say about this. I know this is a place where Dr. Jones goes fairly often. And I know it's also, I'm just dealing strictly with the English text. So I know that we could get more specific if we could deal with these words in a little better way. But we're just going to deal with what we have. And I think it'll give us enough to work with for the time being. And this comes out of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Let me just read just a little bit that leads up to this description of what love actually is and what it's not. Paul says, "And now I will show you the most excellent way." He said, "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm only a resounding gong or clanging cymbal. It's noise. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have a faith that can move mountains but have not love, I am nothing." I think the main thing he's doing here is emphasizing the importance of love. It just so supersedes anything else. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames but have not love, I gain nothing. Then he begins to describe. And this, just keep in mind, even for Paul, this was new territory. He didn't know what this was like when he was wrapped up in Judaism. Something had to change in his life to even get an idea, a concept of this. He said, love is patient. And my question would be, when does the patience run out? How patient is it? It just says it's patient. It doesn't say it's ever anything else. It doesn't say it's patient until it gets impatient. Love is kind. Would that mean it's kind part of the time, or it's always kind? It does not envy. It does not boast. I like that one because, when I think of the God that I used to believe in, it seems like that was the biggest thing about him. He was so boastful. I'm the Almighty. I'm most all-powerful. And we pictured this big, huge being that had to be worshipped, and we had to be careful how we even spoke his name and what we did in front of him. But here we see that love doesn't even boast. And how could that be a description of a God who is love? It goes on, it's not proud. It's not rude. It's not self-seeking. And once again, the God I used to serve, that was all about him. Everything is him. And I'm discovering it's just the opposite. He's the one who cares about us. Not easily angered, and I think that could be more qualified to say it has no anger. There's several other statements Paul makes that indicate that there's no anger there at all. And if you're like me, some of these things are actually hard to even imagine. I mean, I look at it and I got to be honest, this is how I want to be. I want to be just like this. When, when I hear these words read or I read these words, I want to be able to, or people to say, oh, wow, that sounds like Darryl Furlow. And I'm not saying that it does, hopefully to some degree, but I'm talking about this is the way I want to be. It keeps no record of wrongs. I don't know about you, but that just amazes me. How is that possible? Now, this next one is very interesting too. It does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. There's something about that statement. There's something there that strikes me as being very important. You know, when it comes to love, it doesn't settle for less than that which is best for us all. There's a rejoicing when, let's just throw something in there like this, when relationships are good, when relationships are right. It doesn't rejoice when that's not there. And I did say that might come back to this statement that this song makes, love hurts. There is pain involved when it comes to love. And I think everyone who gravitates toward love will discover this, because it's not always reciprocated. As I've already stated, you know, we all carry a load of baggage. We've all got these hindrances that, and it has to do with self, it has to do with self-promotion, it has to do with pride, it has to do with a lot of different things. But when we begin to actually experience love for another, and we find that the reciprocation is not there, it hurts. It brings pain. But one thing that we can discover about love, and this is extremely important, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And then this last statement, it never fails. I mean, if there's a lot of Bible thumpers out there like I used to be, let's thump on this. You know, we read the command of Jesus, love one another as I have loved, or as he loves. And this is the best record that we have for the way he loves. And so, what a goal. What a challenge. And remember also that this particular passage began with, now I'll show you the most excellent way. This is the most excellent way. There's nothing better than this. There's nothing else that I know of that doesn't fail. There's nothing else I know of that perseveres. And so I can't say enough about this. I did want to bring up a couple of other things on a personal note concerning this. Once again, I remember as a child, I had an uncle. He passed away, and it was in the early 60s, so I was just a kid, giving away approximately how old I am. But he was special to me, and I was special to him. And I know I loved that man. He just meant something to me. There was just a special thing there in our relationship. But I also know that he drank. Also know that actually he died drunk. He may have asphyxiated. They found him dead in his vehicle. And from what I understand, he was abusive toward his wife and maybe toward his daughter. And he was just not known as a good man. But I remember the day of his funeral, and I cried like a little kid. I was a little kid, but it hurt. It really hurt that he was gone. I didn't want him to be gone. I cared about him. And I remember my dad telling me, Darryl, you didn't really know him. And I argued. That's probably the first time, one of the only times I've argued with my dad. I said, yes, I did. And to this day, I would agree with my statement. I think I knew him the way that I should have known him. I just loved him. And I was a child. And somewhere in my upbringing, somewhere in my life, I got off track. I quit loving people that way. You know, I may not have within me the power to do for them what they need, but does that mean I shouldn't love them? I shouldn't care about them? Shouldn't be able to relate to them in some wonderful way? And that brings me to another song. And I am going to quote a few words from this song because this was another one from my childhood that stuck with me. And I think it describes all of us to a certain degree. It's a song written by Joni Mitchell. It's called Both Sides Now. And in the song you find the words, moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel. When every fairy tale comes real, I've looked at love that way. But now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from up and down, but still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. And I think if we could come to terms with that reality, you know, how well do we really know love? I mean, I can sit here all day and say, what would love do? Because that's what I would do. Maybe in some cases that is what I would do. But maybe I'm not fully mature. Maybe I don't know love in its fullness. Maybe there's room for growth, and maybe is really not a part of the equation. It's a fact. But what a goal. What a challenge, what a thing to invest ourselves in. Because if we can learn what it means to truly love one another in every aspect, then what will we achieve? Where can we go with that? And once again, I've got to say that I love where the New Covenant group is going. I love the idea of the place, what we're about, because it is about being honest with one another. It's about being transparent. It's about being who we are and yet willing to move up. You know, Dr. Jones was dealing with that passage this morning, John 3. And when he talks about this issue of being born again, I know there's something about this that has to do with actually gaining the insight into where God was. It's being able to go where He is. And that's where I want to go. That's where I want us all to go together. And for my atheist friend, I say, the best place, the most excellent way. And when I see it coming from them, I either have to admit either God's in all of us, as Paul says, or love's in all of us. You know, when I can see them genuinely being kind, being patient, just willing to come to the table. And I'm not I may sound like I'm bragging on atheists, and maybe I am, but this is what we should be able to say about all of us. Really, there's only, I guess, there's three categories. You've got atheists, you've got theists, and you got the in between. It would be the agnostic. Um, but within those three categories, there's not one of us that shouldn't be able to sit at a table of discussion and rationally, lovingly express ourselves and listen and learn and grow together. That's the beauty of it. You know, we're all mutually a part of one another. We need each other. And the sooner we realize that, the better. And I think I'm about to run out of time. We're going to cut this a little short today. And that works for me because I'm having to talk for what's usually 3 or 4 people. So that'll give me a little break. But hopefully there's something that I've stated that will benefit someone, because that's my goal, that's my desire, that's my life's quest, is just to benefit, is to give someone else an advantage. And if I've done that in some small way today, then it makes me happy. Well, I appreciate your time, and I want to say on behalf of the others that would have been here today, I'm sure they missed being here, but hopefully I've been adequate in filling their shoes. Well, thanks for your time, and we'll see you again at the same time next week. And please stay tuned for the rest of our show from 6 till whenever, maybe 10. It's all going to be good. So hang in there. Thank you very much.